What if the fastest way to change your life didn't require money, connections, or luck? Only a decision? For the next 3 days, the way you talk to yourself will either trap you in the same results or unlock a completely different future. This isn't positive thinking. This is identity-level communication. And once you do it, you won't go back. Most people don't realize that their life is not shaped by their answers, but by the questions they ask themselves every single day. The moment something goes wrong, the mind automatically asks, why does this always happen to me? Or, what's wrong with me? Those questions feel normal, but they are quietly destructive. They force the brain to search for reasons to feel powerless. And once the brain finds those reasons, the body follows with low energy, hesitation, and doubt. For the next 3 days, everything begins to change when you become aware of the questions running in your head and deliberately replace them with questions that give you strength instead of taking it away. The brain is a problem-solving machine. It will answer whatever you ask it, no matter how harmful or empowering the question may be. If you ask, why am I so bad at this? Your mind will instantly give you a list of past failures, embarrassing moments, and limitations. Your posture drops, your breathing becomes shallow, and your confidence fades. But when you ask, what can I do right now to improve? Your brain searches in a completely different direction. Suddenly, options appear. Energy shifts. You move from being stuck to being in motion. Nothing outside has changed, but everything inside has. For 3 days, you must become ruthless about interrupting powerless questions the moment they appear. When stress hits, don't ask, how am I going to survive this? Ask, how can this make me stronger? When something doesn't work out, don't ask, why do I always fail? Ask, what is this teaching me that I didn't know before? These questions do not deny pain or difficulty. They give pain a purpose. And when pain has purpose, it stops controlling you. Powerful questions shift your focus. Where focus goes, energy flows. If your focus is locked on fear, regret, or comparison, your energy drains away. But when your focus is directed towards solutions, growth, and action, energy rises. You feel more alive, more capable, more in control. This is why two people can face the same situation and have completely different outcomes. One asks, why is this happening to me? And collapses. The other asks, what can I make out of this? And rises. Over these 3 days, you are training your mind to look for strength by default. At first, it will feel unnatural because you've practiced the opposite for years. But repetition creates mastery. Each time you replace a disempowering question with an empowering one, you are laying down a new mental pathway. With every repetition, that pathway becomes stronger, faster, and more automatic. Soon, you won't have to force it. Your mind will naturally search for opportunity instead of obstacles. This shift in questioning also changes your emotional state. Fear shrinks when you ask questions that demand action. Anxiety fades when you ask questions that give you control. Confidence grows when you consistently ask yourself questions that remind you of your ability to adapt, learn, and overcome. You stop waiting for motivation to appear and start generating it from within. By the end of these 3 days, you may notice something subtle but powerful. You feel less stuck. You recover faster from setbacks. You speak to yourself with more authority and direction. This is not coincidence. It is the direct result of asking better questions. Change the questions you live in, and you change the life you live. Most people believe that being hard on themselves is what keeps them disciplined, focused, and successful. They think self-criticism is motivation. But in reality, constant self-attack weakens confidence, drains energy, and trains the mind to associate effort with pain. For years, that inner voice has acted more like a judge than a guide, pointing out every flaw, replaying every mistake, and magnifying every shortcoming. For the next 3 days, that voice must change roles. It's time to speak to yourself like a leader who expects greatness, not a critic who assumes failure. A leader does not ignore mistakes, but a leader does not destroy the team for making them. A leader corrects, refocuses, and moves forward. When you mess up, instead of saying, I'm so stupid, or I'll never get this right, you shift the language. You say, that didn't work. Here's what I'll do differently next time. That single change keeps your self-respect intact while still demanding improvement. Progress accelerates when your energy is directed towards solutions instead of shame. The words you use internally shape your emotional state. Harsh language creates tension in the body. Shoulders tighten, breathing shortens, and confidence collapses. Encouraging, directive language does the opposite. It stabilizes you. It grounds you. It reminds you that you are in charge. This doesn't make you soft, it makes you effective. Athletes, performers, and high achievers don't scream insults at themselves when they stumble. They recalibrate, refocus, and take the next step with clarity. For 3 days, imagine you are coaching someone you deeply care about. You would challenge them, yes, but you would also believe in them. You wouldn't define them by one bad moment. You wouldn't question their worth because of a temporary setback. That same standard must now apply inward. When you feel tired, instead of saying, I can't do this, say, I've handled harder things than this. When doubt creeps in, replace it with, I'm learning, and learning takes reps. This language builds resilience, not excuses. What you are really doing in these 3 days is rebuilding trust with yourself. Constant self-criticism breaks that trust. It teaches your mind that effort will be punished. So procrastination feels safer. But when you speak to yourself with firmness and belief, your mind becomes willing to try again. Action feels less threatening. Momentum becomes easier to maintain. You stop fearing failure and start using it as feedback. This shift also changes how you show up in the world. When your inner voice is calm and directive, your external communication becomes clearer and more confident. You make decisions faster. You hesitate less. You stand taller. Not because everything is perfect, but because you know you can handle whatever comes next. Leadership begins internally before it is ever visible externally. By the end of 3 days, you will notice that mistakes no longer spiral into self-doubt. Challenges no longer feel like personal attacks. You correct yourself without tearing yourself down. This is not blind positivity. This is disciplined self-respect. When you lead yourself instead of attacking yourself, your potential finally has room to breathe. Most people let their emotions decide who they are for the day. If they feel confident, they act confident. If they feel tired, discouraged, or afraid, they shrink. This puts your life at the mercy of moods that change by the hour. For the next 3 days, the shift is simple but powerful. You start speaking from emotion and start speaking from identity. Emotion asks, how do I feel right now? Identity asks, who am I, no matter what I feel? When you anchor yourself, talk to identity, you become stable in an unstable world. Emotions are real, but they are temporary. They rise and fall based on sleep, stress, memories, and external events. If you allow those emotions to control your language, your actions will be inconsistent. One good day feels productive. One bad day feels like failure. But identity-driven language creates consistency. When you say, I am the kind of person who shows up, you don't need to feel motivated to act. The words remind you of who you are committed to being, and behavior follows that commitment. For 3 days, your self-talk must be rooted in statements of being, not feelings. Instead of saying, I don't feel confident, you say, I am someone who acts even when confidence is low. Instead of, I'm overwhelmed, you say, I am capable of handling things one step at a time. These statements do not deny emotion. They place emotion in the passenger seat and put identity behind the wheel. You acknowledge how you feel, but you do not obey it. Identity-based language also rewires your standards. When you repeatedly tell yourself, I don't quit, quitting starts to feel unnatural. When you say, I follow through, unfinished tasks begin to bother you more than effort. This is how lasting change happens. You stop relying on bursts of motivation and start living from a code. That code becomes your internal compass when things get uncomfortable. Over these 3 days, you may notice resistance. The mind will argue, reminding you at times you didn't live up to these statements. That's normal. Identity is not about perfection, it's about direction. Every time you repeat identity-based language and take even a small aligned action, you strengthen that identity. One decision leads to another, and momentum builds quietly but powerfully. This approach also builds emotional resilience. When setbacks happen, they no longer threaten your sense of self. You don't think, this means I'm not good enough. You think, this is part of the process of becoming who I am. Failure becomes information, not a verdict. You recover faster because your identity remains intact, even when results fluctuate. By the end of 3 days, something fundamental shifts. You feel steadier, less reactive, more grounded. You still experience emotions, but they no longer define you. Your words reinforce who you choose to be, not what you temporarily feel. And once identity becomes the foundation of your self-talk, your actions begin to align naturally. You stop trying to change your life and start living as the person who already is changing it.